You are now tuned into CALSOSCOPED.
What's going on YouTube? CALSOSCOPED back with another video. Today we're going to be doing a quick photo retouching, and it's going to be on a LeBron James picture, and I'm just going to show you guys like my updated photo retouching method. So what I'm going to start out with is I already have the mask ready, so it's all ready to go. I'm just going to leave the background there just a little bit, but first things first is just have your mask ready. Make sure you mask it out well, and then I usually just make a smart object. Alright, but after that, the first thing I usually go ahead and do is use curves. Like I use curves right away. So I'm going to apply curves first. First thing I add is curves, and I like to bring my shadows down usually and my highlights up. And this starts getting me going for the difference of highlights and shadows, which is really what makes photo retouching so special, what makes your photo retouching really good. And then if you're in the middle right here, this is your midtones, and you can adjust these midtones a little bit. So I like to adjust my shadows, make them darker, make my highlights a little brighter off the bat, and I like to adjust my midtones. And the thing is, every photo is different, so don't pay attention to one person telling you that this is the one way you have to do photo retouching. There's plenty of ways. And then after that, I'll go into filter, TOPAZ labs, and I like to use a little bit of TOPAZ adjust. Recently I had been doing like 100 of crisp, but I just dropped that down now, and I'll probably use somewhere like at 3/4. So right now it's like on 64 or something like that, or 66, the overall transparency in TOPAZ. Next step we're gonna do is go select color range, and now I'm gonna select some of the highlights from this jersey, and not from the jersey, from the mask. So I'm gonna select the range, and the fuzziness up here is how much of a, so it's really like the feather. Fuzziness is like the feather. And then the range, if you want a more selected, you are gonna have less range because this is gonna be more white, and white is what is selected when you're on color range. White is what selects the highlights or the shadows on color range. So whenever you see the white, that's what you know is selected. And I like this selection. If you don't like the selection, you can go back. You could delete this layer, go back, and then you could just do it once again. But I like this selection. So what I'm gonna do with this selection is I also give it a feather so that it's a little bit more blended out. See how it's sharper here? Feather makes it a little bit more blended. Kind of like the fuzziness on the select color range. And then I usually get rid of whatever is on the jersey because, you know, I just want to focus on the skin, really. And I don't want to have a lot of these highlights from the jersey get blared out and then you can't see the wrinkles, because the wrinkles are pretty important to see. So then I go ahead and I do the same thing for the shadows. Select color range. We're at this thumbnail again. Now I'm going to choose the shadows, and let's choose a good amount of shadows. And then I'll leave my fuzziness as the same and press OK. Then I'm going to add another brightness and contrast layer and bring my shadows down. Now this is looking pretty good. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to add a selective color. I'm going to bring this down, the blacks down on the reds. So what you need to know about selective color is reds and yellows are what change and adjust your skin tones the most. So red and yellow does that the most. So bringing down your blacks here makes this a lot more dynamic, and you guys can see it right away. Then with the reds, I like to have just a nice tone that looks really like almost animated. And that's what I really like about photo retouching, is you can make things really look almost animated when you start using the difference between the shadows and highlights. Something else I'm gonna do is desaturate this jersey. So I'm gonna go to this semicircle and add a hue and saturation layer. Now I'm gonna click this W for the wand tool. Okay, and I'm gonna have my tolerance. See, the tolerance is at like 90, and that's because I want to be able to select most of this jersey. If the tolerance was lower, say it was like 20, I'm not gonna be able to select more of the jersey. So I'm gonna get away with 90 and see how that works. And I'm gonna click over in this area as well. Okay, and then you're gonna see sometimes it gets some of the skin and things that you don't want. But that's okay, because we can just go in and be more intricate after. I'm going to delete the layer mask from the hue and saturation. Then I'm going to click this layer mask again, and then I'm going to bring my slider down. And now this desaturates the jersey, and it also makes a selection of the jersey, which is going to be major. Then I'm just using black. I'm painting on black to get rid of that area that was on the skin that it desaturated. And then you can either use the pen tool to be more precise, or you can just go in and adjust the jersey like so for whatever the wand tool missed. And you could always adjust the wand tool to have more tolerance so it would select more. Plenty of ways to do one thing in Photoshop, which is the beauty of it. With this selection, I can now add a curves, another curves adjustment. And I'm gonna hold down Alt. Alt is Option on the Mac. And drag this to the curves adjustment. So now, this curves adjustment is just going to adjust the actual jersey layer. And now I can make this jersey layer even more dynamic. So bringing down some of the shadows and bringing up some of the lights. Just like that. Another tip that you can do for the eyes is add another brightness and contrast layer. Surprise, surprise. Then we're gonna bring the brightness all the way up. Invert the mask, so click on this icon, the thumbnail, then we're gonna hit Control I. Now we're going to drop the flow and we're gonna paint and bring the brightness up in the iris. Okay, so bring that brightness up in the iris, painting on white on the layer mask. So now let's add a new layer. Click this new layer. Now you're gonna press Shift F5 and you're gonna choose the contents to be 50% gray. Press OK. Now you're gonna change this gray layer to an overlay layer. And with this layer, you're gonna use dodge and burn, okay? So the reason I chose a 50% gray layer is because 50% gray, it's an even tone and it levels the playing field. So now once we add dodge and burn, which dodge makes things brighter, burn is going to make things dynamically less value, darker. So now I'm gonna go in on certain areas and I'm gonna start making this even more dynamic by manually choosing where I want to use dodge and burn. So I'm just going on first with my dodge and I'm just choosing some areas to make brighter. And this is all gonna come down to what you want to do and where you want to hit your highlights for your players or your subjects, okay? So what you're gonna do here is just choose some areas that are highlighted and then you can always check what is going on, and that's already looking a lot better. So I'm just gonna fast forward through this, but you guys are gonna see a quick process of how I'm gonna use my dodge and burn. If you guys got to this point in the video, make sure you guys check out the Patreon where you guys can get all my project files, inside access on what I'm doing weekly, and more. So now you guys see that I'm just using burn, and this is all gonna be on the same layer. No need to make a new layer, just go for it. And see on these really nice areas, see there's something called ambient occlusion. Ambient occlusion, so that you guys know, it's where a surface touches and it makes almost a completely black shadow. And that's called ambient occlusion, and you really want to get those areas of, you know, ambient occlusion and really express those so that, you know, your retouching comes out really dynamic. So this is how you guys can photo retouch in Photoshop. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Definitely check it out and watch it through more than once or twice if you are stuck or just got confused on any parts. That's what I always do with tutorials. I come back to them as many times as I need to until I really understand it. But with that being said, that's gonna do it for the tutorial today. Make sure you guys drop a like down below and share it with your friends, all that good stuff, man. And you guys can check me out on Patreon, CALSOSCOPED. The link is in the description. You guys get all my project files, updates on what I'm doing, and much more. So check me out over there. And until next time, it's been the Artist of Athletes, CALSOSCOPED. Stay scoped, y'all. Peace.
Feel free to subscribe and support the creator on Patreon.